When I was around 5 or 6 years old, I experienced something that I can't really explain. I just came home from school one day and I decided I would play with my toy cars. When I opened the door to my room, I saw that all my cars were disorganized. I freaked out. I have OCD, and so that's why I freaked out. I then accused my mom of messing with my toys, but she swore she never touched them. I let it go. That night, I was asleep, and my dad was still up. He saw a kid go into the bathroom, and he thought it was me. He yelled, "Go back to bed!" And my mom thought he was crazy, especially since I was fully asleep. When my parents went to my room to check on me, I was knocked out on my bed. My dad went to sleep, and my mom did too. The next day, however, my mom had a creepy experience. She was walking down the hall with my laundry and she was knocked over by someone. The crazy part is I was in school and my dad was at work. She was supposed to be alone in the house. She picked up the laundry that fell and placed them on my bed. After she left my room, however, she saw a picture lying on the floor. She picked it up and then fainted. I came home and saw her passed out on the floor. I got scared because I thought my mom was dead. She woke up only to start crying. She told me that she saw my baby cousin. I said, "So what?" But then she said, "Son, your cousin is dead." Turns out he was killed in an accident before I was born. Nothing else has happened since that day, but I'm convinced that those experiences won't be the last. This happened when I was much younger. My brother was on the soccer team. Let's call him Sean. My family went to his soccer match, which was at a local park. This park included a huge soccer field and a playground area. I was getting bored of watching the game and went over to the playground where I spotted this kid who had a Spider-Man web shooter on his wrist. Being a big fan of Spider-Man, I walked up to him. I asked him if it was the silly string shooting toy, and he nodded. Then he said, "I have another one in my family's car. I'll show you." So he led me over to his van that was parked in the parking lot nearby. He began to crawl in. His father was in the front seat. He gave me a weird, creepy grin, but I still started to climb into the van. Out of nowhere, I heard my father shouting my name. I was pushed out by the kid and he slammed the van door shut. The van sped off and my dad ran towards me and hugged me. After that, my family and my brother left the game. If my father didn't notice I had left the playground or was a minute late, I don't know where I'd be right now. I just want to tell any parent who is either reading or listening to this, please, drill "don't follow strangers" into your kid's head. When I was 4 years old, my family and I used to live in a huge apartment. Along with the apartment complex was a huge basement where we could do our laundry. However, in order to get there, we had to take the elevator. One day, my mom was doing the laundry. My brothers and I accompanied her. My two brothers were playing together. Meanwhile, I was wandering off to the dark basement's hallway. As I walked in further, I saw bloody footprints that were the same size as my feet. I followed the footsteps, and they suddenly stopped at the end of the hallway. I looked up and I saw two kids, a boy with brown hair and brown eyes and a girl with blonde hair and brown eyes. They were both my age. There was something odd about them, but like any other 5-year-old, I just ignored it. I turned my head around to see if there was anyone else in the hallway, but there wasn't. As I turned my head around to look at the kids again, they vanished. I was confused. I mean, how could that be possible? There was only a wall in front of me. A few days later, I was getting into the elevator. As soon as I entered, I saw the kids again. I asked them where their mom and dad were, but they didn't respond. I turned around and I pressed the button to go to the 3rd floor, and as I turned back to them, again, they were gone. I was shocked. So I told the janitor about what happened. Apparently, there was a horrible situation some time ago. A family used to live here, and the parents killed their own children. Now their ghosts hunt the whole complex in search for their bodies. Several years have passed, and we moved out. But I still wonder if they ever ended up finding their bodies. I'm 21 years old now. This happened to my uncle when I was around 9 years old. My uncle was living in our house and was staying at our vacant guest room up on the second floor. He's my dad's cousin, so he was really close to our family. My uncle was a morning person. He would always get up at around 4 a.m., drink coffee, and run morning errands around the house. He also told us that he could see and feel ghosts because he has a third eye. And to give you a little background on our house, it was the very first house that was built on our street. We could sometimes feel something moving around our house, especially at night, but we never really paid attention to it. One morning, my uncle woke up at his usual time, around 4 a.m. He left his room, which was right beside the staircase, saw my older sister, who was 17 years old at that time, going up the stairs with a cup of coffee in her hand. The weird thing was, he said that my sister was looking down and not showing her face the whole time. He greeted her with, "Good morning, and why are you up so early?" He said my sister just kept walking up while looking down and ignoring him. My uncle felt awkward as my sister just walked past him. He ignored it, thinking my sister was in a really bad mood. He thought she probably stayed up late studying or something. My uncle went down to grab a cup of coffee when he saw my mother in the living room, ironing some clothes. My uncle was confused about why my mother was up at 4 a.m. and ironing clothes. He tried to talk to her and asked the same thing he asked my sister. "Why are you up so early?" He noticed that my mother was wearing the same clothes from the night before she went to bed, so he knew it was her. To his surprise, my mother ignored him. My mother never ignored anyone, which is why he found it strange. My mother was just looking down as she kept ironing. That's when my uncle knew something was off. He knew something was very wrong here. He rushed back upstairs to his room, locked the door, turned off the lights, and tried to go back to sleep. He tried to forget about it and woke up again a few hours later. It was around 10 a.m. in the morning when he talked to my mother and my sister about what happened. They said they were asleep the whole night, and they don't recall waking up at 4 a.m. My uncle was so shocked about what he had just experienced. Someone was copying my mother and sister earlier that morning. I was so scared at that time. I became so paranoid that I might feel or see something odd in our house, but I tried not to think about it too much. The night after that situation, my uncle woke up at around 3 a.m. He felt something at the end of his bed, and he saw a woman with long hair sitting there. My uncle froze for a while. He didn't know what to do. He was trembling when he said, "Go away!" My uncle hid under his blankets. After a few minutes, which felt like hours, he looked at the same spot where he saw the woman, and she was gone. My uncle slept with the lights on that night. After that experience, he thankfully didn't experience anything like it ever again. One day, I was on my way back from a school party. I was with my friends, but please keep in mind I was only 20 years old. We were drunk, so we really didn't know where our Uber driver was taking us. He took us through this road called Sonol in California, and everyone in the car knew this road had a very upsetting story behind it. We didn't care, since we were all drunk and it was 3 a.m. We just wanted to go home. At what seemed like the end of the ride, the driver stopped at the side of the road and let in this girl. She sat in the back seat of the car. She claimed her name was Mary. All of our hearts dropped when we saw she had a dress on. It was a white dress. She also claimed that her husband dumped her on her wedding night. She said she was trying to find a ride for 3 hours, but she couldn't since it was too dark outside. When I got a good look at her, I was shaking because she was tearing up blood. I whispered to my good friend Dominic. I told him about the Bloody Mary story. I told him that it took place on this very road and that the girl might be a ghost. Right as I finished that sentence, she looked at me through the rearview mirror with her bright, white eyes and asked us if we were talking about her. My heart dropped once again. We asked the guy to pull over, but he insisted on dropping us off at our location. One of my female friends in the car started crying after Mary started reciting all of our names from the back of the car. We were scared because we didn't tell her our names. Now everyone in the car was crying except for me. It felt like we were driving forever, but it had only been 10 minutes. It got brighter out, and we realized that no one was in the back. It was a night spirit that was there, and it left because it was now morning. The next morning, I thought about what happened while I was taking a shower. When I looked in the mirror, I saw a scratch on my neck. When I was 8 years old, I used to live in my grandma's house in Ecuador. Many of the neighbors would talk to my parents about seeing weird stuff in the house, like shadows moving around the windows when we weren't home. The first thing that would come to our heads was that someone must have broken into the house, but nothing would ever be missing. Of course, they didn't think that there was someone breaking in. They were sure that our house was haunted. Everyone even refused to come inside for parties or any other special occasion. They told us to get a priest and to get rid of any bad spirits. We didn't take their warnings as something important because my parents don't believe in those kinds of things. Although I would hear someone going up the stairs at night, our stairs were...
Hey, yeah, just put the video right there. Thank you.